Okay. All right, welcome, folks. We are live, and we are okay. See the Rambam in front of you? Ooh, waiting for Yosef. I just realized. Okay, Denis, Sarah, Asher, David, Tim, Christo.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Ooh, okay. Okay, Yosef is not coming on. So I just got a text from him. It's just he's not feeling well, so I will take over. Just saw that this moment. Just sent a few moments ago. Okay, we are on Hilchos Shvisa Asar, on the laws of resting on the 10th day of Tishrei, which is Yom Kippur. Yesh b'cholm arba mitzvahs. There are 4 mitzvahs. Shtei mitzvahs essay, 2 positive commandments. Shtei mitzvahs lois essay, and 2 prohibitions, negative commandments. These are the details. 1, lish boy melacha, to rest on Yom Kippur from any kind of work. Shaloi la'aseh boy melacha. That you should rest is a positive commandment. The negative commandment is that you shouldn't do any work on that day. The 3rd commandment is that you should fast on that day, and the 4th one is that you should not eat or drink. So they're flip side of the same thing, meaning positive and negative commandment on the thing on them. And we will now explain all these mitzvahs. It is a positive commandment to rest from any kind of labor on the 10th day of the month of the 7th month. As it says that it is the Sabbath will be for you. Anybody who does a forbidden act, a labor rather, you nullify, you have negated a positive commandment. So that was a positive commandment, but there also you are then transgressing a prohibition. Shenemar, as it says, the Esor, the on the 10th, and as the verse continues, that you should not do, again, not, that's negative. So it becomes a prohibition now, any form of labor. What are you liable as a result of doing a forbidden labor on this day? If you did it willfully, any type of labor on Yom Kippur, then you are chayiv kares. Kares means early death by the hands of heaven. If you did it accidentally, chayiv karban chatas kavua, you are obliged to bring a sin offering. Halacha number 2.
You need a screen.
Sorry?
Screen.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Thank you. I'm doing it from my book. I probably should do it better from the screen. It's easier from the book. Unless label, do you want to? Are you busy? Okay. So any kind of forbidden work that when there's witnesses and they forewarn you that you are liable for when you do it willfully on Shabbos, that you get skila, which is stoning, you get chayavim al zdeinai be'eser kares, you are then liable for kares, again, the early death, on Yom Kippur. So likewise, what do we call a labor? Whatever is a labor on Shabbos is considered a labor on Yom Kippur. Anything that is prohibited to do on Shabbos, so anything that on Yom Kippur that you are prohibited from doing, even if it's not a labor, one of the 39 categories of biblical law, that is a prohibition. You're likewise, if it's on Shabbos, it's prohibited. Yom Kippur, likewise. And if someone did those things that are not of a biblical prohibition on Yom Kippur, then you get what's called rebellious lashes, which means rabbinic lashes. As similar as on Shabbos. And likewise, anything that is prohibited to carry on Shabbos, Yom Kippur has the same law, it is forbidden. Likewise, anything that is prohibited to say, right, not just actions, but even saying or to do on Shabbos, likewise is prohibited on Yom Kippur. What is the general principle? The Rambam says, the only difference that there is between Shabbos and Yom Kippur, everything is the same, except for one thing. When you do willfully an act on Shabbos, with witnesses, you can get skila, but on Yom Kippur, it's only chorus, a lesser punishment. Halacha Gimel. 3. So you're not allowed to eat and drink, we said, but yet, Yom Kippur afternoon, you're allowed to trim some of the vegetables from a mincha time afterwards, that you can have things prepared for after Yom Kippur, even though in actuality we don't do this in halacha. So wilted leaves you could remove in order that the consumption would be after the fast. So likewise, we can crack open nuts and open up the pomegranate, that all these things would be prepared from mincha agmas nefesh, because of the hardship that a person endures on the fast day. If though Yom Kippur falls out on Shabbos itself, all of these things that we just mentioned are prohibited from doing. Even though from the mainstay of the halacha you would be able to do this, but the custom that is universally accepted in Babylon and North Africa is not to do any of these preparations on Yom Kippur, even when it doesn't fall on Shabbos. Halacha 4. Mitzvahs essay. There's another positive commandment, that is not only to rest from on that day from doing any kind of labor, but on Yom Kippur is also to subsist or abstain from eating and drinking, as it says, "Tanu is nafshes heichem." That's a positive commandment over here, that you should afflict your being, your soul. From this we learn what is called an affliction. What is the affliction? Fasting. And anybody who does fast fulfills a positive commandment. However, someone who does eat and drink on this day, they negate the positive commandment. But that's one thing they do. But also, they also now transgress a prohibition. Shenamar, as the verse says, that any soul that does not, does not, so that's the negative commandment, afflict themselves in this day is nichrasa, is cut off, as we mentioned, early death. So from this, the fact that it says that you should not, that you will get cut off with kares. So from that punishment, we understand that there is then a prohibition, that we are forewarned that we shouldn't eat and drink on this day. And then someone, again, who does eat and drink on this day, accidentally and inadvertently, they have to bring a sin offering that's of a fixed nature. Halacha number 5. We also learn from the implied over here. Also, so from this, we also learn that it's prohibited that we should wash ourselves, or we should anoint ourselves, or that we should wear shoes, leather shoes, and as was back in the day, or to have relations, husband and wife having relations. So it is a positive commandment to not engage in any of these things, just like eating and drinking. Similar, as the verse says, Shabbos Shabboson, Shabbos Le'inyan Achila, that it is a resting from the idea of the eating. The Shabbos Le'inyan, since it says both Shabbos Shabboson, it is a Sabbath. Sabbath means resting. You're resting from eating, and you're also resting from the other things that we just mentioned. However, there is a distinction that we're only obliged or liable for kares, early death, or for a sin offering when it comes to eating and drinking. However, when it comes to the other areas, in others, if we washed ourselves, or we anointed ourselves, perfumed ourselves, or we put on leather shoes, or we had relations, then you would get stripes of rebellion, which is from rabbinic law. Halacha number 6. So just as there's an obligation to refrain from any kind of labor that applies both to the day and the night, so too there is a obligation that we need to refrain from these activities and afflict ourselves by day and by night. So, and right now he adds something. But however, you even need to add from the profane day to the holiness of the day, also both in the entering of the holiday of Yom Kippur and in the exiting of the day of Yom Kippur. Where do we know that you need to add? And the verse says, the verse says you need to afflict yourself, not on the 10th day, but on the 9th day. Now, it doesn't mean another day of fasting, 2 full days of fasting. No, Kalaimer means, in other words, you need to begin your fasting and to afflict yourself, which is through the fasting, from already on the eve on the 10th, which is on the eve on the 9th, close to the 10th. So likewise, that's in the entering to the holiday, but also in the exiting. We also have to afflict ourselves a little bit into the 11th day, because when nightfall, of course, starts with the 11th day, close to the 10th day, as the verse says, me'erev ad erev, from evening to evening, you shall keep this refraining. In other words, you're adding something in the evening, the following evening, to the refrain over here. Halacha number 7, the final halacha in the first chapter. Women who eat and drink until nightfall. In other words, not adding on to, as we just mentioned in the previous halacha, to the fast. We should, and then because they're not aware of this adding on from the mundane day to the holy day, we should not rebuke them in order that they shouldn't come and do it purposefully. Because, when a person's mind, let me eat to the last moment, let me get it in. No, don't rebuke them, because then they might do it purposefully. So you shouldn't. It's preferable that you're not like a police officer that you're watching. If they're transgressing, doing wrong, it's not good to be that way in the household, and therefore better that they should transgress unintentionally instead of doing this intentionally. And this applies into many other areas likewise. And that we conclude the first chapter. Now we go into the second chapter with my dear son, Label.
So, second chapter for the laws of Yom Kippur. We mentioned that one of the halachas of Yom Kippur is that you're not allowed to eat. So let's discuss the details of not eating on Yom Kippur. So halacha number one, halacha aleph. So there's something called ma'chol ha'ro'uyin. Ma'chol ha'ro'uyin means food that are meant for a human to eat. Not only meant for a human to eat, it provides sustenance for a person when he eats it. So then, if he eats those kinds of food, lecha la'adam kekeseves hagasa. So then, the amount, the equivalent of a ripe date, that's how much he's not allowed to eat on Yom Kippur. Shipachas mikabetza, which is smaller than an egg, kimat. And if he eats that amount, so then he's liable. What if he eats multiple different foods? He like a crumb from this and a crumb from that. They all come together, so to speak. They even if he makes a cholent of all the different foods, they come together to create that amount. And if it's that amount, he's liable. And what about liquids? So if you drink liquids, and it has to be liquids, that it has to be liquids that's for humans to eat. It's proper. It's
Human
normal
consumption.
It's for human consumption. So then it's kimlai lugmav. Kimlai lugmav. It's to fill his cheek. So if he a cheekful, and that's how much he's not allowed to drink. And every person, his cheek is different, so it's based on his cheek. And then if it's more than that, chayev, he's liable. And how do you calculate how much is a cheekful? If you take liquid, put it into your mouth and put it to one side, one cheek, and to the cheek that fills up, and you see the cheek be full, right? So then it is a full cheek, a cheekful. And on average, this is pachas miravius. It's less than a revius, which is around 3 ounces. So it's a little less than that you're not allowed to drink on Yom Kippur. And similarly, any liquids that you drink joins together to make this amount. But the food and the drink doesn't join together. Halacha Beis number 2. Similarly, you're not on mute, and we hear the recording. You hear it, huh?
Yeah.
No, so I'm muting you because you have the Facebook on over there or something. You have the recording. If you could unmute yourself, but we hear the Facebook in the background. Halacha Beis number 2. Someone who eats. If someone eats foods that's allowed or foods that are not allowed. What's foods that are not allowed? If someone eats different foods that you're not allowed, like pigul, nicer, tevel, these are different foods that looks like there's a screen on it.
I know. I what does it say? Please remove.
It says move the window from the shared application. Is there a window on top of it? Is there like a checkbox, an okay or something?
I don't see anything here.
Minus the screen and see if there's something behind it.
Oh, what's this? Oh, it's still here. How do I get rid of it?
I don't know. Reshare the screen, maybe.
Yeah, you know what? Let me stop share. There we go. Okay.
Okay, so if you ate pigul, noisar, or tevel, which is food that halachically you can't eat, food that you didn't give tithes from, food that was for sacrifices that you didn't eat properly, etc. So those are food that is not they're not legal. You're not allowed to halachically. You're not allowed to eat. So it's utreifos v'chele v'dam, or it's animals that weren't slaughtered properly, etc., or died and weren't slaughtered at all, or blood. So even if you ate food that halachically you're not supposed to eat, but since it is fit for human consumption, so you're still chayiv, you're still liable for kares if you ate those on Yom Kippur. Halacha number 3. What if you ate or you drank less than the amount that we mentioned? So then is not liable for kares. Even though biblically you're not allowed to eat that amount, even half of the amount that we mentioned earlier. But in chayav and kares, you're only liable for kares ella al kashir, only if you ate or drank the amount that was mentioned. But if you ate or drank half the amount, so then you do get some sort of lashes, stripes of rebellion. Halacha daled number 4. If you ate a little bit and then you came back and you ate a little bit more. If the amount of time in between the two eatings was enough time to eat 3 eggs, less than 3 eggs, so then the 2 eatings are connected to each other and they join together. But if it was more than that, so then they do not join together. Each eating is separate. Similarly, if someone drank a little bit, let's say someone drank an ounce and then they came back later and they drank another ounce. So if there was enough time to drink a revius, a few ounces, so mitzdarf and lashir, so then it does join together. But if it was more, so the aim mitzdarf and do not join together. Halacha hey number 5. What if you ate food that's not fit for human consumption? Bitter herbs, bitter grass, srafim, or foul-tasting syrups. Or if you drank something that's not fit for humans to drink, or morias, fish brine, pickle brine, or undiluted chemetz chai, undiluted vinegar. So then, even if you ate or drank a lot of that, you're not liable for kares, but you get some sort of lashes. Halacha vav number 6. But if we mentioned vinegar that's not diluted, but if it's vinegar that's diluted, chayav, you are liable. If someone chews dried pepper, dried ginger, or something like that, so you're not liable. Lovig fanim, fresh ginger, so then chayav, you are liable. What are these leaves of sorry, yeah, when someone chews leaves from a vine, so when you're not liable leaves. A person who eats leaves from a vine is not liable, but one who eats buds from a vine, he is liable. So what is buds from a vine? So he says those are buds that come out at certain times a year, from Rosh Hashanah till Yom Kippur. So then they're softer, so then you are liable. But if it's after that, so then it's considered to be wood. It's like wood, and he is not liable. And similarly, anything similar to that. Halacha zayin number 7. If someone eats meat that is roasted, but it has salt on it also, so the salt is included. Melach lebasar. So you can't say that we're just going to measure the amount of meat. It's also included with the salt that's on it. It gets included. Sear, shalgabe yerek, mitzdaref, anything like brine that's together with the vegetables, so then it is included with the vegetables when you're calculating an amount. That anything that's there to make to add condiments that's there to add to the food, it's considered considered chashuv. It's considered to be something that is part of the food. What if someone ate and he ate very, very well, and he's totally full? And then he ate more than he's like eating now above what he needs to in order to be full. So then pater, then he's not liable. Because it's similar to someone that's eating food that's not fit for human consumption. Even though for someone that's hungry, this is something that's good for him. But someone that's this full, so then it's like disgusting to him, even though he's eating, but it's something disgusting to him. So therefore, he's not liable if he totally overeats. Halacha ches number 8: if a sick person that there's a real danger here, not someone that's just there's a real danger here in his sickness, and he's asking to eat on Yom Kippur. What if the doctors, even the doctors that know this sickness very, very well, and they say, nah, he's fine, he doesn't necessarily need to eat. But if he's asking for food, and you do feed him, you gave him food based on what he's asking, until he says he has enough. But what if the sick person says that I don't need, I'm fine, I don't need to eat, and the doctor says that this guy needs to eat, we rely on the doctors and we give him what to eat. Obviously, we're talking about a doctor that is well versed and knows about this sickness specifically. You have two doctors and they have an argument, and they're saying one says that he needs to eat, he can't fast in Yom Kippur. The other one says he doesn't need to eat. I say you do give him food on Yom Kippur. What if there's some say this way, some say that way? You go over you go according to the majority of the doctors, or the ones that are more well versed in this. But this is all if the sick person is not saying that I need to eat. But if the sick person says that I need to eat, doesn't matter what the doctors say, as we mentioned before. I say we give him food. What if the sick person doesn't mention that he needs to eat, and the doctors are having an argument? Well, you kulam b'kiyim, and they were all well versed. And it's an equal amount of doctors that say that he needs to eat, and an equal amount that doctors say he doesn't need to eat. I say you give him what to eat. Halacha test number 9: ubara. A woman who was pregnant, shehiricha, that she smells food. As we know, in halacha, it talks about this very often. A woman, thank you, Michael. A woman that is pregnant and smells, it could be very dangerous, and she feels that she needs to eat, so it could be very dangerous for the fetus, and therefore there's certain halachas that apply. So therefore, if she smelled food and this smell made her want to eat, so first of all, you mentioned her, you in her ear, you whispered to her, by the way, it's Yom Kippur, just in case you forgot, it's Yom Kippur. If this helped her calm down and she doesn't necessarily need to eat, she doesn't feel that urge to eat, so mutav, great, but if not, if it didn't work, so you have to feed, this woman has to eat until she could calm down, until she doesn't have that urge anymore to eat. And if someone has this crazy hunger, the hunger that the Rambam is talking about over here, that the person faint, I don't know if it's faint, it says that he can't see, that his eyes become covered over, glossed over, that this person can't see properly because of his hunger. And that's a certain sickness that they used to have back in the times of the Rambam. And this is a very extreme type of hunger. So the Rambam says you should give him food until his eyes come back to regular seeing. Even if it's stray food, you make sure to give him food right away. This is a sickness you don't wait. You don't wait until you find proper food, like kosher food for this this person. Halacha Yud number 10. Katan, a child ben teisha shanim or ben aser shanim, when he gets to the age of 9 or 10, so you start teaching him how to fast on Yom Kippur. How? By giving him hours. Not that he should fast the whole Yom Kippur, but a certain amount of hours he should fast on Yom Kippur. Ketzad, how's this done? What if he usually eats lunch at the second hour or breakfast at the second hour of the day? So push it off an hour. That way you should get used to the Yom Kippur is different. We wait, we don't eat regularly. Usually eats at the third hour. Eats at you feed him at the fourth hour. And depending on the strength of this child, you add hours as he grows, as he gets older. Ben Achas Esrei Shana Ben Zakar Ben Akeva, when he gets to 11 years old, whether he is a whether he is a boy or a girl, so then he starts fasting properly based on a rabbinic. That's not biblical. Biblical is when you're over bar mitzvah, as he's going to mention in the next halacha. But from a rabbinic perspective, we have to start teaching him. So when we start teaching at 11, he should start fasting. We have a different custom, but yeah, but if someone has an issue with low blood sugar, he should speak to his rabbi about fasting on Yom Kippur, because there's definitely halachas that go into that aspect. That's halacha Yud Aleph number 11. Someone who's 12 years old and one day, a girl that's 12 and one day, or a boy 13 and one day, that he came to a certain level of maturity. So they're considered to be adults. For all mitzvahs, and they have to do it biblically. But if he didn't have 2 pubic hairs, so then so then it's only rabbinic. Katan, a child that is younger than 9 years old, you don't make him fast on Yom Kippur. You shouldn't suffer on Yom Kippur, so to speak. Shouldn't come to a situation of danger. With this, we finished the second chapter of the halachas of Yom Kippur. Yes, Michael, very detailed. Halachas are very, very detailed.
Thank you, Label. Okay, we go now to the third chapter, which is actually the final chapter of the laws of Yom Kippur. Also, so we mentioned before that not only eating and drinking, but you're not allowed to wash yourself on Yom Kippur, whether it's hot water or cold water. Whether it is limbs that you're washing, or even if it's just one single finger, you're not allowed to put that into water. However, a king, Jewish king, and a kala, a woman that just got married, they can wash their face. The kala, the bride that just got married, in order that she should not become, not appear unattractive to her new husband. The Amelech and the king, because he always has to appear in glory and splendor. As the verse says, that the eyes shall always behold a king in splendor. So that's a ruling. But ad kama nikras kala, when is she called the bride? Kala for 30 days. So that means just washing her face. Halacha number 2. Someone who was soiled in that was soiled with filter mud. So then you could wash in the normative way because you're soiled with filter mud. And we're not concerned. A woman who's feeding her child, and this is called negelwasser, and he doesn't speak about it here in the open way, but he's speaking about here that she can wash her hands in the normative way, or actually what we do is we wash our hands to our knuckles and that's brought down in later commentators. But here speaking it because your hands are impure to go of a woman feeding her child, and she shouldn't do that. So then she can wash her hands in Negelwasser back and forth 6 times. But that's brought down in later commentators, and that's what we do today, only to the knuckle, to the first knuckle over here, as opposed to the wrist. He doesn't mention that over here again. He's just mentioning it in this reference. When it says positive, and then she can give food to the child. Someone who is sick, they could wash normally. Even if this person is not, deathly sick, right, or something that is of a severe nature in any manner. Now, someone who needs to ritual purity, this is only along the times of the Holy Temple, that you needed to ritually purify yourself in order that you could do some of the service in the Holy Temple. Then on Tisha B'Av or on Yom Kippur, you could then use the mikvah for that matter. But today we don't have that. We don't have the Holy Temple, so therefore it is not permitted. Someone who sees a seminal emission on Yom Kippur. If it is moist, then you should wipe it off with a cloth. If it is dried up, or the person became soiled from the seminal discharge, so then you should clean up the places that are soiled, and that is sufficient, and then go pray. Also, it's called gufay, but it is forbidden to wash your entire body because of this discharge or leakful, or to go to the mikvah because you have become impure. Why is that? Because today we do not immerse ourselves in a mikvah in order to become purified from tumas meis, because we can't, tumas meis meaning coming in contact with a corpse, because that necessitates another process of the paraduma. We don't have that today, so there's also this part of that process that you would go to the mikvah doesn't apply today, and therefore we do not go to the mikvah. And even the idea of cleansing yourself today, which there is idea for prayer from a seminal discharge, that it was only a custom. And a custom does not come and negate or set aside a prohibition of the Torah, but only it would only come the other way around, that you would make prohibited that which is permitted. And even this idea that someone who sees a seminal discharge on Yom Kippur that does go to the mikvah, that was only back in the time actually of Israel, that this was established, but then that has already been disbanded. We do not have this ordinance. It has been nullified, and therefore it does not apply today. So the bottom line is, we do not use the mikvah on Yom Kippur for any instance today. Halacha number 4, tit shuhu lach b'yoser. So now, if you have mud that is very moist, and kadesh yaniach adam yadai olav sal ba lachluchi she'ena she'im hitbik oisei liyadai ha'acher sig bagba lachluchi is also leishev olav. So this is an interesting idea that I'm not clear, be quite honest, of the fact of it. But if you would sit in moist mud, there would be enough moisture that it would take from hand to hand, sufficient moisture that would go, and you would kind of like, it would soothe you on this day, right? It would soothe you on this day. If there's enough moisture that would go from hand to hand, that would make one hand moist and the other hand moist, then it is forbidden to sit in this to kind of cool you off. Again, I'm not certain of what the actual mitzias or fact of this is, but it's the idea of cooling yourself off with a moisture of this kind of something that's a mud that creates a moisture that will cool you off. Likewise, a person shouldn't fill an earthenware container of water to use to cool themselves off. For the water may permeate through its walls, and therefore you're not allowed to do this. This again, all it's back in the day, cooling ideas, air conditioning ideas back in the day. Also, even if it was a metal container, and again, the purpose is to cool you off, but there might be water sprinkles that will come to your body, and therefore it is not permitted. However, what is permitted is holding fruit that was fresh fruit that was, I guess, in a storage, and by holding it, it is going to cool you off. That is allowed because there's not going to be it's not going to be it's not going to go from one hand to the other, that it will create that kind of moisture. Halacha number 5. But by the way, today you could put on before Yom Kippur your air conditioner. That is okay. Right. Halacha number 5. A person could take a handkerchief on the eve of Yom Kippur, before Yom Kippur, and then soak it in water, and then wring it out so it's not, dripping with water. And you can put it under your clothing, that the sun shouldn't get to it and dry it out. And then tomorrow you could take it and put it on your face to cool you off. And we're not concerned, even though it will still be very cold and will cool you off. That is okay to do that. Halacha number 6. So you have there's a commandment in the Torah that you should receive and greet your teacher, or you should go to your father and receive him. It's a commandment of honoring your teacher, honoring your father, or someone who's greater in Torah knowledge, or or you're going now actually to learn with your study partner in the house of study. You can go into water. You till your very neck. And you're not concerned. Mitzvah, because you're going to do a mitzvah. Not only can you go to do the mitzvah, but you can even return back to your place, your original place, afterwards. And we're not concerned. Because if we don't allow the person to return, the person might not go to initially to do the mitzvah. And it comes out that you will then you will be negate and not be properly observant of the mitzvah that you're supposed to. In other words, to honor your father, to your teacher, and so on and so forth. Likewise, someone can go to guard their fruit. They can even go into water until the neck. So a person wants to go guard their produce on Shabbos, right? Just to see what's going on with their produce on Yom Kippur. So they can go through water neck high without any reservation. This is a leniency that is granted. Why? Because a person is kind of worried about their produce, so it's granted that they can go. And as long as they do not extend their hands under the fringes of their garment, as one would do in the weekday. In other words, you got to do it a little differently than you did in the weekday. As a result, this you can't go back. By the way, you can only go in one direction because you're not doing a mitzvah. You're just concern for your produce, right? So this is a leniency that the rabbis gave. Halacha number 7. It's forbidden to wear leather shoes or even a sandal, even if it's only on one foot. However, it is permitted to go out with a sandal, with a shoe that's made from reeds or rushes. Is something from a tree bark or something like that they made shoes back in the day. That would be permitted. Beged al raglav. Likewise, a person can wind a cloth on their feet and go out, and that way you're not going barefoot. So you can put this cloth on your feet or something similar to that, because the feet are sensitive to the harshness of the ground when you would go barefoot, right? Since you can't go with shoes, remember back in the day, they didn't have that many options. So this would be permitted. Now, even though children, as we mentioned earlier, if they are 9 years or younger, or even if they're just practicing and they're allowed to eat and drink and wash and to anoint themselves, but they should be not wearing leather shoes on this day. Why? To start to educate them, because that's not going to prevent, or that's not going to be anything dangerous for them, that they're not wearing regular shoes. Today we wear, any kind of cloth shoe or a shoe that's made from rubber, like, and the like. Halacha number 8. Is a sandal. You're allowed to wear sandals if it's necessary to protect yourself when you're going in the outside from being bitten from scorpions and the like. Back in the day, that was a real concern. Now, a woman who just gave birth, for the first 30 days after she gave birth, she can wear sandals, right? And we're talking about here the regular things that you're not allowed to wear. She could, because of the cold, right? Yom Kippur could fall out this year. It's going to be very early, but in a leap year, then when it falls out later, it could be cold, and that's not healthy for her. So for the first 30 days after giving birth, she could, in order to protect her feet and not get the chills and get sick. Likewise, the same rule applies for someone who is sick, even though it's not a dangerous sickness. A person can also wear those shoes. Right? Today, that's not. Remember, we're getting the parameters of the law over here. Today, we don't have to worry because, people have many, many pairs of shoes, and it's easy and expensive to buy a cheaper pair of shoes to wear on Yom Kippur. Halacha number 9. Also, it says so just as it's forbidden to anoint yourself, the entire body, so too it's forbidden to anoint any part of the body for pleasure, right? But if a person was sick, even though it's not a dangerous sickness, or the person has sores on their head, a person can anoint themselves, and we're not concerned. The final halacha in the laws of Yom Kippur, so some people have the custom in some communities that they would light a candle on Yom Kippur, so that one would be modest with regard to their wife, because there's a light that is there, and which is not the appropriate way to have relations with a candle in the room. So they would light a candle, so that way a person would not be prompted to be intimate with their wives. And some people have the opposite custom, right? And that is that they don't light a candle. Why? Because now by lighting the candle, you're going to see your wife, you're attracted to her, and that might prompt you to bring you closer to her and have relations, which is again prohibited on Yom Kippur. However, if Yom Kippur falls out on Shabbos, on Shabbos, it is a mitzvah to light Shabbos candles. Yom Kippur, that's not on Shabbos, is not the same kind of mitzvah. So therefore, there were two different customs. But if it falls out on Shabbos, then we do light candles for the honor of Shabbos, and therefore, whatever the custom would be in your particular place, Yom Kippur that falls on Shabbos, do light Shabbos candles. That it is an obligation. Today we do light even when Yom Kippur is not on Shabbos. Today we have electricity and so on and so forth. So candles are still lit. Blessed be God who grants assistance that we could learn. And we have completed the laws of Yom Kippur. Any questions, any comments, Everything's clear? We're good? No questions?
I have one, but
Okay.
it's only based on my upbringing because there were a lot of these things that just were never done as my community gradually went into conservative and then to reform, and now
Right.
whatever it is. A couple of us did follow a lot of things, and I only noticed the leather shoe thing once I got out of high school and into college. I was in other communities. What's this? That's the kind of thing that was going on. But in general, they're so meticulous. Everything I see, and I'm sure when I get a chance to read back on the rest of that, it'll be the same thing. That's always been a bit of an issue for me because I'm never accustomed to it. And now I'm not sure how to judge for myself because I am permanently sick in some respects as kidney transplant. So I'm immunosuppressant. There are other things I can't do. And I'm not sure the right path, but I deal with that. And I do talk with the rabbi about that.
So you should speak to your Orthodox rabbi who's following halacha, because if someone needs to eat on Yom Kippur, so there is a proper way to do it.
I have found a way around that so far.
Well, it's not sorry, I need to correct you, Michael. It's not a way around it. It's the halacha of the proper way to deal with it. It's not around it. It's the proper way to deal with it. Don't think at all that it's getting around the law.
Oh, I'm not trying
It's the proper fulfillment of the law.
I'm not trying to get around the law. I'm trying not to violate anything.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
good.
okay, you didn't understand. I'm relieved.
Okay, I'm sorry. No, the words that you
No.
said to get around,
Well, to
sounding
get
like,
I'm tired.
right. No, what it might be, Michael, is that you must eat
It might
according
be.
to Jewish law, because we
might be.
learned that, right?
I've held back. I try.
And I'm saying it could be that the halacha is you must eat. That's all I'm saying.
I understand.
That's all.
The rest is just a bit haunting because it's all, I've heard it before, but it's all still pretty new to me, some of the things. And
By the way, if you must eat, there's a way, is you eat less than a certain amount every certain amount of time, like one slice of bread every 10 minutes, 2.5 ounces water every 10 minutes or 8 minutes or something like that. I don't remember the exact timing now. Is a way that you do it on Yom Kippur, that way it is, as we learned, is not the complete amount that makes you liable. So even when you're sick, so there's a way to do it.
I understand.
Okay, but thank you for sharing that.
There's more, but it's another time. You're doing fine.
Okay. Any other questions?
I did have a question.
Sure, Sarah.
Yes, when I lived in Austin, my rabbi told me that it didn't, like, because my medications I do have to eat, and so I was wondering when we were speaking about the, what we could eat and what we couldn't eat, like how does that work?
Yeah, when the time comes, you have to ask a reliant Orthodox rabbi who can give you the appropriate answer. If you want to ask me or if you want to ask somebody else, whoever it is, we'll take into consideration exactly what the medication is, and if it's a medication that needs to be taken, must be taken. So then there will be, again, the proper way to do that.
Okay. All
Okay.
right. That sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah. So, it's not a public thing in any case, it's a private thing. So at the appropriate time.
Right. Exactly. Thank you.
Very welcome. Any other questions? All right. Shorter today.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, folks. Have a wonderful day. Tomorrow we go all the way from Yom Kippur to Pesach. The laws of chametz and matzah and everything in between. So today you can't eat. Tomorrow you have to eat matzah. Go eat something, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.